Hi, it's Josh Goldberg here. Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm talking about 3 essentials for spouses of people with borderline personality disorder. If you yourself have borderline personality and you would like your spouse to be more on the same page and to be more helpful and supportive, I highly recommend that you send them this video. Okay, so quick few things about myself. I'm a certified relationship counselor. I was a former real estate sales professional. Then I became a relationship and life coach, life counselor. I've had 2 relationships with people suffering from borderline personality disorder. One of them was for 9 months and it failed. And the second marriage has been a total success, so I do have personal experience on this topic and it is quite important to me. So let's get into it, So 3 essentials for spouses of borderline personality disorder. Number 1 is, if for the relationship to be successful, the spouse of the borderline person has to heal any codependency, any previous trauma from past relationships or childhood, any attachment wounds, any negative emotions from past relationships, So the spouse has to heal from these in order for this relationship to last. And the reason is because the borderline person's behavior and their condition will tend to bring out all of the unresolved emotions and unresolved trauma in the other person, through emotional flashbacks, and just being in a wounded state allows the person to be basically overrun by the borderline person, So any codependency, any unresolved trauma, any attachment wounds have to be healed. It doesn't work if both people in the relationship both have unresolved emotional issues or unresolved emotional wounds. So also with codependency, has to be healed, if the relationship is going to last. Generally, codependents that get involved with borderline people and also narcissistic people become even more wounded, and it takes them even longer to heal. So if you need this relationship rather than wanting it, that's not a good sign, You have to want to be in this relationship and not need the relationship, So codependency and borderline personality and also narcissistic personality disorder don't go together. One spouse in the relationship has to be fully healed for the relationship to be able to last and to go forward. So one person has to be totally healed and trauma-free, and the spouse should be working on themselves and to resolve these areas, so that the spouse can encourage the borderline person and elevate them and help them to come into a world of healthy boundaries and trauma-free, So this is number 1. I myself am not a codependent, I did not have any significant unresolved trauma going into my borderline relationships, My parents divorced when I was 10, which at 10 years old, I'm already past the formative years. It was a little bit of a trauma when my parents did divorce, but it didn't create any attachment issues or any serious ongoing behaviors, It basically just caused like a slight fear or an emotional flashback of divorce and separation, but nothing that is easily triggered. So that's the only reason why I can say that our current marriage has been a total success, because if the borderline person wants to heal, and most of them do, and the spouse is totally trauma-free and healthy, they're not codependent, they don't have previous unresolved abuse, then the relationship has a very good chance of lasting and becoming healthier and healthier, So that's number 1. Number 2 is psychoeducation on borderline personality disorder. Okay, if you don't know about the condition, there's not much chance that you're going to deal with it successfully or in the right way. Okay, like when a bunch of my clients, when they first come to me, they are totally confused. They've been dealing with it a certain way. Okay, borderline personality disorder is incredibly confusing because the borderline person has adopted very ineffective communication and they have a lot of confusing behaviors. Okay, so if they say A, they really mean B. If they're throwing you out of the house, they really want you to come close. Okay, so without understanding the underlying information on borderline personality, a person is more likely to take it personally and to become confused and to become hurt. But if one understands borderline personality disorder very well, it's easier to digest the behaviors and the communication with their borderline person as part of the condition and to not take it personally. Okay, so psychoeducation, if you don't have a good psychoeducation on borderline personality disorder, there's a very slim chance that you're going to deal with the borderline person in a way that is helpful to them, and it's probably going to be destructive to you also if you're taking things personally. If you're reacting negatively to the borderline person's behavior, then that's a proof that you don't know what you're dealing with. Okay, so that's number 2. You have to educate yourself from reliable sources on borderline personality so you understand what your partner is doing and why they're doing it, so you can respond and act appropriately. Okay, so that's number 2 is psychoeducation. Number 3 is external support and guidance. Okay, this is another very important one. When you're emotionally involved with someone, your emotions, especially if they're strong, your emotions tend to skew your intellect and blur your judgment. Okay, so one critical mistake that people make when they're involved with a borderline person, even if they're psychoeducated, even if they have done a lot of healing themselves, okay, if they're not regularly on a weekly basis getting support and guidance from someone that is outside the relationship, that isn't emotionally invested, the spouse of someone with BPD can start looking at things in the wrong way because of their emotions. They can start acting in a way that is not the best way, and having someone on the outside gives the person a clear set of eyes that are not emotionally vulnerable and not emotionally invested. Also, boundaries and communication skills. Okay, so a person has to be getting constant training, constant renewal of the right skills, because weeks and weeks with someone with borderline, you can drop the boundaries, you can drop the skills, and then you start to become hurt and reacting. So, plus emotional regulation. Okay, this is the most important thing. Spouses of people with borderline personality often become gradually emotionally dysregulated and build up resentment and anger and even rage, because the borderline person's condition itself does evoke a lot of negative emotions in the spouse. And you couple that with the fact that the borderline person is not emotionally available until they've healed significantly, because emotional neglect is part of the foundation of borderline personality. So you have the borderline person's behavior, which is stirring negative emotions in you, plus the borderline person is not able to resolve and validate these negative emotions. Over time, this is going to lead to the spouse becoming significantly emotionally dysregulated, along with anger and resentment and frustration and rage. So talking with a supportive person on a weekly basis allows you to actually get these feelings out and to have them validated and to feel like someone understands your emotions and you can deal with them. Okay, and being emotionally regulated is extremely important when you're dealing with a borderline person that is emotionally dysregulated. Okay, because If the spouse of a borderline person becomes emotionally dysregulated themselves, then the borderline person doesn't stand a chance of healing, and the partner of the borderline person is also basically going down. Okay, so a quick recap. Number one, the spouse of someone with BPD has to heal their codependency, has to heal unresolved trauma, unresolved abuse. If they had bad relationships in the past, okay, they have to resolve these relationships with someone, like with a counselor or a therapist, and basically get to the point where they have no emotional wounds anymore. Number two is psychoeducation. The spouse of someone with borderline has to be more or less an expert on the theory and the information of borderline personality so that they can understand the behaviors and not take them personally, in order so that they can act in a way that is helpful to the other person and also for themselves. Number three is regular external support and guidance. Okay, so having someone on the outside of the relationship gives a unbiased and fresh pair of eyes and ears to provide information that is not emotionally invested. Okay, so all of these three things need to be ticked in order for the relationship to progress at all. Okay, I can guarantee you, if any one of these 3 points is not in check, the relationship with the borderline person is not going to last. It's going to be harmful to yourself, and also the borderline person is not going to heal. It's going to take extra work in the future to heal from this relationship. So I would like to encourage spouses of BPD people to please find someone that's competent and experienced to work on these 3 points in order that they can help the relationship and to be supportive to their spouse, and also to remain healthy themselves. Okay, so these are the 3 essentials for spouses of BPD. If you know anyone that is in a relationship with a BPD person, I would like to encourage you to send them this video. And if you are suffering with BPD yourself and you would like your spouse to get up to speed on being a good support for you, I would like to encourage you to send them this video. Please subscribe to our channel for future content, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.